Take a deep breath in. As you breathe in, just imagine breathing in a resourceful feeling of relaxation. And as you exhale, just allow your eyelids to close. That's it. I want you to position your body in a way where you feel comfortable. As you breathe in and breathe out, I want you to get a sense that you're breathing in that wonderful feeling of resourcefulness, and that you're exhaling any stress, any tension, any anxiety, slowly but surely in your outward breath, enabling you to feel deeper and deeper relaxed. That's right. As you breathe in and breathe out, start to scan your body for any feelings of tension, stress, or anxiety. Sometimes tension is around the forehead or the eyes or the neck or the shoulders. Sometimes stress can feel like shallow breathing. And sometimes anxiety can feel like a knot right there in the gut. But as you breathe in that feeling of resourcefulness, I want you to accept the idea that tension isn't necessary here, and feel that tension leaving your body. That stress is just an echo of demands that don't need to be thought of right now, and you can release that stress. And anxiety is just a way of thinking about the future, and right now there is no future, just my voice here in the present. And I want you to get a growing sense that you're breathing in a wonderful feeling of resourcefulness and exhaling that tension, that stress, that anxiety. Just feel it leave your body in your outward breath. That's it. As your body relaxes, I want you to imagine looking at an old paper map. These days, everyone looks at maps online on apps, but I want you to think of an old traditional map where you can see the terrain, you can see the type of buildings or countryside, and I want you to imagine looking at a place in that map where there is a large blue area surrounded by green, the blue representing a lake and the green representing trees. And as you focus on that location in the map, I want you to imagine what it would be like to step into the map and find yourself walking through trees towards the edge of a picturesque lake. Breathe that fresh air, and maybe the trees have a smell, maybe they're pine trees. All trees have a smell. Nature has a sense, and there is a stillness around the lake. So as you breathe in and breathe out, just feel like you're walking gradually towards the edge of that lake. And interestingly, on the edge of that lake, I want you to imagine is a kayak. It's a familiar looking kayak, maybe in the color and the style that you recognize. But I want you to get a sense that the kayak represents freedom. When you're out there on the water, nothing else matters. But there's something interesting. There's something interesting in this kayak. that it seems to be weighed down by 3 heavy bags containing something that clearly is weighing the kayak down. Not enough to sink it, but to slow it down, to make it difficult to use the kayak. And I want you to imagine what it would be like to get into the kayak with those 3 heavy bags and start to paddle out in the middle of the lake. And sometimes when you're relaxing in nature, your mind drifts back to memories. I want you to imagine you're getting deeper and deeper relaxed, and there in the middle of that lake, on a sunny day, on a still lake, feeling safe, I want you to think back to a time when you were barely a small child, more like a baby, a tiny toddler, just a year old. And I want you to go back to see that memory, not to re-experience the memory, but to see the memory as you are now. Just imagine you're floating back in time in a giant bubble, observing what happened back then. But I want you to observe what happened before, during, and after. Perhaps you can see communication being made between people that are there to care for you. And I want you to observe that miscommunication, that one person thought the other person meant something different to what they meant. And in doing so, each party thought the other person was going to do the thing that they were meant to do. I want you to observe that. Observe the lack of malicious intent, and instead really focus on the importance of good communication, of checking things, but also that mistakes can happen. Then I want you to observe what happened with you. See yourself just as a very small child, just a toddler there in that home. See the expression of worry, sadness, anxiety in that small child that didn't know what was going on, just knew that they were alone. But I want you to see how resourceful you were. Perhaps you were checking rooms, trying to figure out if there was anyone in the home. And before long, I want you to observe as you saw yourself managing to open a front door, challenging as a small child, screaming for help, and that help came. I want you to observe that this was not you being abandoned. I want you to observe that even as a tiny child, you were a highly resourceful, capable, self-aware being. And if you can make that observation, let me know by nodding your head. And I want you to see, as a result of your resourcefulness, the situation was resolved. Perhaps lessons were learned by the people that made those mistakes. That actually, this was evidence of your resourcefulness. And I want you to look at it through that lens now. Rewind it and play it back again. Not seeing an abandoned child. I want you to see a highly resourceful child. And maybe you've seen the movie Home Alone with Macaulay Culkin. There was a child that was accidentally abandoned, but found a way of being highly resourceful when no help was on hand. And I want you to look at your life there as a small child in that same way. That an accident happened and it gave you an opportunity to be highly resourceful. What you were able to do as a tiny child was quite impressive. And I want you to form a belief system that you've always been resourceful. And if you accept that to be true, let me know by nodding your head. I want you to find yourself back there on the kayak. And one of those 3 heavy bags represents the idea that you were abandoned as a child. Perhaps a belief was formed that you were alone, you had to fend for yourself, rather than the true belief that you were highly resourceful, able to solve problems not of your making. And as you let go of the old belief and form the new belief that you've always been resourceful, always been capable, feel the weight of that bag as an echo of trauma through the past, and just let go of it and let it sink to the bottom of the lake. And as you do so, feel like you're releasing that emotion within yourself. You feel lighter. You feel clearer. You feel a sense of letting go of some of that baggage you've been carrying your whole life. That's right. I want you to imagine getting back into that bubble and going back to a different memory now. Perhaps a memory of when you were just 3 years old, being left with a babysitter. And I want you to observe what happened. See yourself like you're just a 3-year-old child through the eyes of you as an adult. And see that version of you being treated unfairly, but maybe with the benefit of experience and wisdom. Maybe you can see the age of that babysitter. Maybe they were no more than a child themselves, inexperienced, frustrated, not knowing how to actually deal with situations. What happened was not right, but I want you to look at it now through the lens of what was really happening. Was it that you were unsafe? Or was it that in the world there are people that are frustrated, unresourceful, easily triggered? I want you to observe what happened through the lens of empathy. Or maybe this babysitter was just a mean young adult or older child. In which case the lesson you could learn could be that not all people are good people. Not all people are worthy of responsibility. But I want you to see yourself that even though what happened, you recovered quickly. And maybe it gave you an element of resilience, toughness, strength that served you very well through your entire life. I want you to accept the idea that good things can come from bad experiences. Imagine rewinding it, and this time having it as you would want to have happened. And maybe that you can imagine that 3-year-old with the communication skills that you now have. And maybe you resolve the situation in a different way. Maybe you avoid the situation that led to the assault. But I want you to get a sense that at 3 years old, you didn't have the wisdom, the skills, the ability to communicate, the ability to de-escalate, the ability to stick up for yourself as you did back then when you were just 3 years old. At 3 years old, you were very vulnerable. But imagine you've got all of your current resources and observe those resources in that 3-year-old version of you. And see how it could have handled and turned out entirely different. And when you see it looking different and feeling different, let me know by nodding your head. And I want you to get a sense that there's two ways to look at when bad things happen in your life. You can be a victim, or you can be a survivor. And I want you to see that 3-year-old as a survivor, as capable and resourceful, and see that that's really the skill that you learned at that point in time, that it made you more capable, more stronger, better able to deal with conflict and escalation. And when you accept that new belief and that new frame of reference, let me know by nodding your head. And find yourself back in that kayak. Any of those echoes of emotions that you felt since that point, place them into that second heavy bag. And then when you're ready, lift that very heavy bag and let go of it, allowing it to fall all the way to the bottom of that lake. And as it falls to the bottom of the lake, you feel lighter, freer. Get a growing sense that you're letting go of the past, benefiting from the gifts that the past has given you, but letting go of the past. And when you fully let go of that heavy weight, the baggage of the past, let me know by nodding your head. Then imagine yourself back in that floating balloon and go all the way back, perhaps to a time when you were left with your grandparents for several weeks. Observe a child that was already nervous about being left alone. Picked up on the different energy or frustrations or resentment around them. I want you to see a child not that was abandoned, but that was incredibly self-aware. A child that wanted to avoid the pain and distress that they'd experienced before. I want you to see a child that is capable, very aware, and eager to feel safe and protected. I want you to get a sense that there are two different ways that you can be safe and protected. You can rely on things outside of your control, like other people or the environment, or you could become the strongest version of you. And when you're the strongest version of you, you are your own protection, you are your own safety. And I want you to imagine you're now seeing perhaps a 3 or 4-year-old version of you with all the knowledge and all the experience that you've had throughout your whole life, but imagine it back then as a 3 or a 4-year-old. Observe what happened and see. See a resourceful, capable young child, unfazed, because you know that your safety comes from within, not externally. That you don't need other people, you just like the company of other people. Play it forward with that new representation, seeing yourself as a strong, capable, worthy young child. And when you look at it through that lens, let me know by nodding your head. Find yourself back in the kayak, ready to let go of that final bag, but just search your whole body for any echoes, any feelings, perhaps any stress, tension, anxiety. Place it all in that last heavy bag. And then when you're ready, let me know by nodding your head to release that third bag. That's it. Feel the weight of that bag, let it go. Hear the splash that it makes in the water, and see it go all the way down until it gets too dark to see, knowing that it's going all the way to the bottom of that lake. But notice how much free and lighter the kayak feels. Notice how much lighter and freer you feel. as you allow your unconscious mind to create new belief systems to replace the old belief systems. You weren't abandoned. Your mother just didn't know what to do. She was trying to deal with her own demons, find her own validation, her own love. You were caught in the crossfire of her dealing with her own desire to feel safe and loved. The truth is that you were resourceful back then and you're resourceful now. You were capable then and you're capable now. You were always worthy. You were worthy then and you were worthy now. I want you to get a growing sense then. The reason that you've gone through this journey isn't because nobody wanted you. It's because you were trying to keep yourself safe. And I want you to unlock all of the resources within you to keep yourself safe from the choices that you make, the boundaries that you set, and the person that you evolve to become. Sometimes when traumatic things happen in childhood, adults become like a moth to a flame, seeking out the very thing that can cause them the most pain. But you can now let go of that. And you can now be the butterfly seeking the flowers that give you joy, rather than the moth seeking the flame that will only burn you again and again and again. And if you're ready to accept that new identity, let me know by nodding your head. And then feel how good it feels to just kayak around that lake, feeling light and free and worthy and safe. And once your unconscious mind has updated these belief systems to become current and present in this moment, let me know by nodding your head. I want you to kayak back to the shore, feeling lighter, feeling worthy, feeling that you don't need the love of other people. You can like it and want it, appreciate it, you just don't need it because you've always loved yourself. Even as a tiny child at 1 year old, you loved yourself so much that you asked for help when no one was there to help. You've always loved yourself. Therefore, you don't need the love from other people. You can just appreciate it. And if you accept that to be true, let me know by nodding your head. Return to the shore, surrounded by those trees, the smell of the trees, and then find yourself staring into a map, looking at a blue circle surrounded by green. And then imagine that even the map is just part of your imagination taking you on a journey. That from this point forward, you're updating belief systems to accept yourself 100%, to acknowledge your worthiness, your capability, and to know that true love comes from within, not externally, and that the choices you make are what keeps you safe, not from things happening outside of your life. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose, returning to the present. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, accepting that this whole journey is just thoughts within thoughts, ideas within ideas, dreams within dreams. As I now count from 1 to 10 to awaken you, starting to count. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.